Joining us now, man of the hour, Congressman, 7th District Republican Dave Brat. Congressman, great to have you back, sir.
Hey, great to be on, John. Thanks.
Okay, so, boy, we got a lot of talk about today. I want to start with this Iranian deal. Look, we don't have the facts. You've got 60 days. It's going to be an up or down vote in Congress. Obama's going to veto it. You're never going to get 2/3. So to a lot of us, this looks like a charade. But I'll tell you what's troubling the people is, Dave, we've got poor prisoners, hostages over there. It's inconceivable to the layman in America that they would not have been negotiated out. What say you?
Well, no, I agree with you. I think you're just talking about Trump, and Donald Trump is the strongest and the best on that point. And it's not just Iran. The U.S. is getting rolled from Russia to China to Iran. And this deal, it's just a matter of a decade or so, and then they'll have fully developed ICBMs, about $150 billion to continue their terrorism and threats against Israel from Iranian proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah. Mm-hmm. And so it's just a piece of the cloth up here, and we do these narrow little trade deals, et cetera, that just deal with trade, but they don't deal with the American power that we can bring to bear on the rest of the world and ask these countries to behave themselves, or they don't get to have an exchange with the greatest country on earth, diplomatically, economically, militarily, et cetra.
As far as staying on foreign policy a minute, the Ukrainian situation and now what we're dealing with Vladimir Putin now, what do you think we ought to do?
Well, it all is coming together and becoming very clear. Congress has abdicated its role across the board. And so what we need to do is encourage our Republican leadership and Democratic leadership in Congress to get on the ball when it comes to foreign policy and to start, not just playing politics, but to start engaging in the world. And so when it comes to Putin, we need to have a declaration on our position as Republicans, and then the Democrats, and then we challenge each other in the world of ideas, but we're not doing that. Everybody's dancing. I think you were just getting frustrated in the last segment about politics and why nothing gets done.
Right.
And so everybody's dancing, in hiding because 2016 is at the forefront of everybody's minds, winning an election instead of, we have dire disasters, and I hope we get to my amendment that I put in last week on the unfunded liabilities, because economically it's just as bad as it is on the international front.
I want to get there right now. You put an amendment in last week, NIH amendment. It really showed that Congress is not even committed to solving the spending issue, Congressman, and this is why so many people are just checking out of the system. They no longer believe that any of this is going to get solved. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I come from an economics background, and politics has degenerated into basically just follow the money. And if anyone wants to understand any issue, people say it's about left and right and ideology and all this, and the newspapers try to make you sound good or bad or whatever. It's not. It's all about money and power. And on any issue, you can track that. And so on the bill last time, it's called the Cures Act. I'm obviously for cures. My dad was a doctor. My brother's a neuropath. And the Cures Act, we can actually save money in the long run if we do it right. But we didn't do it right. We added another mandatory program. And I think your listeners know that's the number one issue I've been harping on forever. $127 trillion light. And now the latest data out of CBO, all federal revenues will be used on only those mandatory programs by 2027. That's only 11 years from now. All federal revenues will be used by those mandatory programs and interest payments. And so another way of saying that is there'll be no money left for transportation, the U.S. military, education, et cetera. And so it doesn't get more serious than that. And we failed, and so I had 140 Republicans sign on to my amendment, voted for it, but 100 didn't. 100 Republicans didn't vote for that amendment. And my amendment just kept the same spending levels and everything, but just said no way can you add to mandatory spending. You have to go through the budget process and maintain your fiscal discipline, and you have to prioritize. and no one up here wants to prioritize. And so basically our leadership has 50 votes over with us Republicans, and they will hardly speak to us because we're not where the money is. The money's way over in the middle with Nancy Pelosi and K Street and the cronies, and it's about that bad.
Well, Congressman Brat, the 100 Republicans that voted in opposition of your amendment, which is common sense because 2027, as you say, just over a decade away, what is their answer for solving it? Do they have one?
No, they have no answer. I mean, they just, that's the problem. They're hiding under their desks, and if they're confronted on it, there's no answer. And the people have to hold them, right? In my district, I'm lucky. My people pay attention to the numbers, the economics, the foreign policy, and we need the rest of the country to wake up because we're throwing all this on the kids. All of those mandatory programs, Medicare, Social Security, et cetera, are insolvent by 2030 as well. Their own board of trustees say they're insolvent. And so our kids aren't going to get those programs. And we're just completely ignoring it. And then the debt is on top of that number, right? So $127 trillion is the biggest, and then $18 trillion in debt over on the side next to it, and then $3.5 trillion on the Federal Reserve balance sheet we got to peel off, and we better walk that tightrope carefully or interest rates will spike. And so it's no one is managing this economy, and it's terrible.
So, Congressman Brat, I just want to frame this for our listeners. Because if Congress can't move a measly $10 billion, which was your amendment, $10 billion from autopilot to discretionary,
right?
How are they going to be able to tackle $127 trillion of unfunded mandates that suck all the dollars out of the U.S. economy by 2027? How will that happen?
Well, it's clear it won't happen, and it's going to be a shocker. I mean, when you take away the transfer payments, I mean, right now, I'm not by any means suggesting that seniors or et cetera are living high. They're not. They're getting by with current Medicare, but it's going to be ratcheted down significantly because there's no money to pay for it.
Right.
And so basically, it's kind of intergenerational theft. We're stealing from the next generation. And they're the only group that doesn't have a lobbyist up here, and so they lose. And it's embarrassing.
So if nothing happens, Congressman, between now and 2027, what will be the result?
Well, as of those dates, right, 2027, you can still pay for everything, but if you want to fund the military, you'll have to deficit spend dollar for dollar. For every dollar military spending, you'll have to go into deficit. And so the deficit's currently $500 billion. The deficit's on its way under current trends right now to $1 trillion a year by 2025. And that's without this problem I'm discussing. Mm-hmm. So you throw that on there. I mean, we'll be in Greece land. I mean, it'll be approximating that type of scenario where the debt gets so big that our financial markets will clearly be, blinking red lights by then. The bond market will be having a hiccup, and they'll be sending us all the warning signals. They already are. And it'll just slowly build. I mean, that's the good thing. We still have some semblance of a free market system.
Right.
And so Wall Street, and we'll get plenty of indicators, and we had them before the, 07-08 financial crisis. All the red lights were blinking on all the critical, debt to GDP percentages, et cetera. And they're blinking right now, and it's just the political will to do anything about it. But everybody wants to get through the next election, and then once you're through that election, of course, it'll shift, and we'll be worried about the next election.
Go through trying to get other people in the House to understand the dire financial straits that we're in and what is going to happen. What are some of the things that people are saying? Just give our listeners some feedback, because it would seem to me if you had a meeting and you said, look, by 2027 we run out of all discretionary money, what are some of the reactions of these people?
Yeah, well, I'll just give you the concrete example. I mean, I'm on the budget committee, and Tom Price is our chairman. He's a real good, serious guy, fiscally serious. And so we do our work, but it's almost kind of an aspirational committee. And so we do the heavy lifting, and we only get the balance in 10 years. And that's, assuming Obamacare goes away. That's built into our assumptions, and that may not be the case now with a court decision. And so after that's done, then you take that aspirational document, and then it goes to appropriations. And we have 12 appropriations bills. And the head of appropriations almost hinted a few months ago, said, I need more flexibility. Well, flexibility probably means we're going to break the budget caps. There's, we got the sequester budget caps on the military and the social spending.
Right.
And so that was the hint. Now we're passing, 5 or 6 of these approps bills, and the Senate hasn't passed any yet, I don't think. Maybe they got one through by now. But they're not passing any, so you can see what's coming, right? And it's almost calculated on the calendar. So we're going to have another budget blow-up. We'll have another omnibus or cromnibus, and we're right back to square one. When I came in last year for my first week, I had the cromnibus, a couple thousand pages that I had to read in 2 days. Can't do it. And then you got to vote on it, and everybody throws the kitchen sink in there. The deficit goes up, and that's the undisciplined we live with, because everybody just wants to get their stuff included in the budget. And this is, everybody knows this, right? I mean, the main papers up here, Politico, The Hill, all the major political papers, this is widely known. But it just doesn't get down to the people, and the people need to find out, because they'll be very upset when they see that this is, year after year, almost just calculated on a calendar.
It's just, it's very difficult, Congressman, for the average person out there listening to this right now to understand why nobody's taking action. I want to shift over to a minute. Let's get to the Export-Import Bank, the reauthorization on that kind of stalled when you won the primary in last June. What now?
Yeah, well, thanks for that. And that wasn't me. That was the people of the 7th made that happen, and the people around the country can do similarly, and they need to. And so we sent a huge warning shot that the game as usual is coming to an end. In the 7th, that's the case. But we're just hopeful right now. It's dead right now. But our Boehner has hinted that it might come back up. The Senate, there's been some deals over there explicitly reported on that there's almost been some promises that it will come back up with restrictions. But that's like putting amending it a little bit. But you still got a crony program that we're going to amend a little bit. And of course, over time, we'll probably strip out all that. And so I'm still very nervous on that. It was rumored that it was going to be attached to the transportation bill, but that didn't happen. And so there's Jeb Henseling's been doing good work on that in the Financial Services Committee, and he's been opposed to it. And so it depends on what Majority Leader McCarthy does on that thing. If he brings it up, it'll pass, because the Democrats will all vote for it, and 50 Republicans will vote for it. And so that's where we're at. If it comes up, it'll pass, and it's about that clear.
My heavens. Okay, final question. We're almost out of time. Congressman Dave Brat with us. Let's go to the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership deal that you'll have a chance to look at. Realistically, Congressman, any chance that can be defeated in the House?
Realistically, no. They already, kind of twisted the arms on that. Everybody was getting, calls in the offices, 10-1 at least. In my office, it was 50-1 against. And, the problem is the secrecy part, and we're going to give authority to President Obama, and so everyone's hugely skeptical. I am. It's got less to do with trade than it does with the, labor and environmental regulations and all that kind of thing. And so that's what we're nervous about. And the crony aspect, the Hill, I think, reported last week that, surprise, surprise, there's some stuff about, big pharma and being in conflict with letting generics come through. And so trade agreements are supposed to lower prices. And in a trade agreement, there's a dispute between big pharma and generics, right? So this is what's wrong. That was just one little symbolic piece. And I don't have the total facts in my mind on it, but that's what I'm nervous about, that we're legislating on key areas of pricing of, drugs and, how the free market system should work in a trade bill. And so the chamber and all the businesses want it, and I do too, for the same reason. It expands markets and enhances trade. I'm all for that, but I just think there's going to be 1,000 more of these little cuts coming up that we haven't seen yet, and when it's all said and done, it's not going to be pretty.
I don't think it is either. For more information, you can go to brat.gov.com or davebratforcongress.com, either one. Hey, Congressman, great to have you on. Final thing I just want to get your comment on.
Sure.
The EPA is trying to put this new ozone regulation in Virginia. How do you stop this?
Well, that one is easier. I mean, I think the National Association of Manufacturers calculates Virginia could lose something like 39,000 jobs per year. And
right.
So in this area, the House, the Senate, the National Association of Manufacturers, the Chamber, all the business, we need to put up a fight on this kind of stuff. And so the administration has been just running amok from Iran to every other issue, and we're not standing up in public. But this is one where we have to, and we're bringing our economy to a standstill. We're not growing. Everybody knows it. And so, it's up to leadership. I mean, I hate to pass the buck, but, we got 50 guys in the Freedom Caucus. We're messaging on all this. But if you don't hit your own leadership and get them to message very loudly in public, this is something we all stand for, is not overburdening American business right now when we're still trying to get a recovery going, and it's that hard. And so this thing's a no-brainer. The Republicans are unified, and if we don't fight on this one, I don't know what we can do.
All right, sir, you got to hang in there and keep fighting. We want to thank Dave Brat for being with us. More info, go to brat.house.gov. Congressman, appreciate your candor. Thanks for being with us, sir.
Always good to be on, John. Thanks much.
This is the John Fredericks Show. We'll be right back.